Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the I Choose to Be Active Womandla in Fitness webinar, brought to you by the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. Please take note that we are about to start. Kindly mute yourself, switch on your videos, and feel free to ask and type your questions in the chat or tag us using hashtag WIFwebinar and hashtag I Choose to Be Active. We will now remember all lives lost because of gender-based violence and femicide with a 30-second moment of silence. Then we will introduce our facilitator for the evening. Now let's have the 30-second moment of silence. Our facilitator for this evening is Masi Bulele Mkundi, also known as Fit Masi. She started this I Choose to Be Active lifestyle in 2018. She has also become a Womandla in Fitness inspiration to her community, and she shares her journey across all social media platforms. Fit Masi is always willing to assist people where she can when it comes to fitness and a healthy lifestyle. Follow her on her social media platforms at Fit Masi and get to be inspired daily.
Thank you, Womandla in Fitness Koketso. Welcome everyone, Molweni Sanibonani. I believe that everyone is still on the Heritage Month as we're closing it today. I would like to welcome people, obviously, that are watching from Zoom and everyone that is here, as well as people on Facebook. Just again to welcome you guys. As you know, we host these webinars monthly. To keep in touch or to keep the conversation going, you can follow our hashtag, which is WIF webinar on Twitter, on Instagram, as well as on Facebook. And also, I choose to be active. Now, our topic for today is culture to be blamed for obesity. Let me first introduce the panelists, Imbokodo, the people that are here tonight to share their experiences, to share their insight on this topic. Remember, the Womandla in Fitness webinar is an initiative of I Choose to Be Active and is proudly brought to you by Department of Sport, Arts and Culture. So it is befitting that I introduced first the representative from the department. Okay. Our first panelist is also our queen, as you guys can see on the screen, Miss Naniki Malesa. QNN, as we fondly call her, is the head of marketing at the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, where she is known to work tirelessly to drive awareness of department programs so that South Africans can be empowered on work done by the government to better their lives. And then we move to our guest for tonight.
Thank
our
you,
guest for tonight, thank you, Womandla in Fitness. Our guest for tonight, we have Dr. Bridget Hoyman. Dr. Bridget Hoyman holds a medical degree from the University of Wits, a postgraduate traineeship in epidemiology from Malman School of Public Health in Columbia University in 2011. She worked as a general practitioner in private practice for 10 years prior to joining nonprofit organization Right to Care as an HIV clinical in 2017. She has a specialist in prevention of cervical cancer prevention in HIV positive women over the past 14 years. Over the past 14 years at Right to Care, Dr. Hoyman has served in various management positions and currently holds the position in medical manager at Tembaletu Clinic in Helen Joseph Hospital, which specializes in HIV and TB care. She has participated in clinical research with multiple publications in various scientific journals and presented at various international conferences. Her fitness journey started as a young medical student at the University of Vets when she signed up at the gym campus as means of maintaining her physical and mental well-being in what was very challenging academic environment. Fast forward to today, Doctor, as a mother and a wife, living with athletes has prompted her to take up running as a new form of keeping fit with her family. And now we are moving to our panelists. I have Obagengi Fit Obi. Obagengi is a qualified HIIT instructor who recently acquired a qualification in sports management. Is known for her philanthropic work of encouraging culture of fitness amongst the youth, especially from township and disadvantaged communities. She owns Nob's Fitness business delivering fundraising programs to empower. Sorry about that. Or to empower a marginalized community to gain access to better and true lifelong wellness. And up next, we have Miss Rosta Mukwena. Rosta runs a virtual workout.
Hello, boys. Where is my turn to speak? Where can I speak?
Apologies about that.
I'm very sorry, boys. I'm very sorry.
I don't know what is happening. Okay, no problem. Okay, can I continue, Koketo?
Yes, you can.
Okay. And then we have Rosta. Rosta runs a virtual workout studio and consultancy called
Yes, I'm very
RM
sorry, bro.
Consultants. She is a certified personal trainer with over 10 years experience in the fitness space. Her passion in empowering women to learn how to embody lifelong wellness is inspirational to watch. And also we have Fit Zamaswazi, Uzamaswazi Nkosi. Uzamaswazi Nkosi started exercising to deal with the very stressful and difficult times in her life. Fast forward to today, exercising has become therapeutic and keep her sane. The fact that she inspires people to doing what she loves drives her even more to keep fit. And
may I go to the toilet, sir?
Alone. Today, I'm not alone. As a facilitator, I'm assisted by Usipo Setu Maile, as we know her on the Twitter street or Instagram streets as Setu Bree, who started her fitness journey way back in 2016 because she wanted to get rid of cellulite. Today, she is a pillar of strength to us in the fitness community because she is known for reminding both men and women that diet and physical active lifestyles are great combo to a lifelong wellness. Welcome, Setu.
Thank you, Mercy. Womandla in Fitness.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Now that we have introduced our panelists, let me first apologize for the noise and people on the background. Honestly, we don't know what is happening. I apologize for that, and I apologize on behalf of the team. Now that our panelists have been introduced, let's start our topic for today. Q&A. Is culture really to be blamed for obesity? And what do you look forward from today's session?
Thank you so much for that, Fitmasi.
we can certainly say without any doubt whatsoever that culture is not to be blamed for the rise of obesity in this country. And that if anything, Dr. Hueman, alongside the phenomenal panelists that she's got with her tonight, will unpack to all of us the very many things that are influencing why we are sitting with obesity in this country. And to be able to understand that culturally, we in fact are known to be a nation that embraces a way of living and a way of eating that is quite healthy and encourages lifelong wellness. And that somewhere along the lines, we have lost touch with who we are culturally and in line with our heritage, and we can begin to redress that. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. All right, now this sets the tone for tonight. And this is clear that culture is not to be blamed for culture, with at least obviously 31% of men and 68% of women in South Africa considered to be obese. Let me come to you, Doc. What would you then say are medically recognized factors that are pushing men and women of our nation to obesity?
Thanks for the question, Fatmasi, and good evening, everyone. So I think it's important that we first start by defining what the term obesity means, because we sometimes get it wrong. So it's very important that we distinguish clearly between what is being overweight and what is obesity. So both these conditions refer to excessive body weight or body fat, and usually it's associated with risks in health. So how we distinguish or categorize obesity versus being overweight is by a measurement called the body mass index. So what the BMI basically looks at, it measures your weight as a proportion of your height. So for instance, if someone has a BMI of 25 to 30, they're considered as overweight. And if their BMI is more than 30, then that is defined as obesity. The second point that I want to drive home is the fact that obesity is a chronic disease. It's not a sign of weakness, and it should be managed as such. So often we make all sorts of judgments about fat people and we think that they eat too much or they're lazy, but that's often not the case, because there are multiple predisposing factors that can actually perpetuate or lead one to become obese. So I will delve into those factors, and I also want to echo what QNM has already stated, that culture is definitely not to blame for where we're finding ourselves. So before we go into the factors that cause obesity, I think it's also critical that we talk about how massive or how big this problem is. So globally, we're looking at extremely high rates of obesity, and the WHO has actually proven that over 500 million citizens globally are currently obese. And if nothing is done about this, by the year 2030, it's predicted that 50% of global citizens will be obese. In South Africa, you've just alluded to the statistics. We're looking at a prevalence rate of about 31% in men and 68% in women. And data also further shows that Black women are more affected as compared to their white counterparts. We're also seeing an increase in childhood obesity, and the problem is quite severe. So currently in South Africa, childhood obesity is sitting at rates of 13.5% of children aged between 6 to 14. Globally, we are actually doing very, very bad, because globally the rate is currently 10%. So you can imagine, if we measure against the global rate of obesity in childhood, we are actually leading even the world rate and the world prevalence in obesity. So what are the causative factors? I think the first thing we need to acknowledge is that we all have genes that we've inherited, physical traits from our ancestors and our parents, and this plays a massive role in our predisposition to obesity. Secondly, gender is quite critical in that males and females actually weigh in differently. So for instance, females are more likely to be obese than men. And as we've already indicated, Black women have a greater propensity. But is that because of culture? I would say no. I think it's a lot of behavioral changes, it's lifestyle changes. It's also how society has made a lot of impositions on Black women. And we all know that women are caregivers, particularly Black women. And they often, because they have so much responsibility in the family, find less time to busy themselves with physical activity. Additional factors would be urbanization. We all know that with the move to urban areas, that comes with a whole lifestyle change. Our lifestyles in the urban areas are westernized. We don't walk to places, we take taxis, transport is readily available. Secondly, our food patterns and our choices of food has actually deteriorated. Whereas our ancestors and our rural counterparts tend to eat fresh fruit from the soil, we opt for instant processed meals that are high in energy, very low nutrient content, low in fiber, and we often opt for sugary drinks, and that is also how we feed our children. Furthermore to that, we are not encouraging children to be active. Our children spend a lot of time in front of screens, watching TV, playing TV games in front of computers and cell phones, and very little is done to monitor that they go back to playing. And we used to play as children, and we were relatively a thin generation. You also look at the socioeconomic factors. I always talk about the rise in the middle class, and we all know that with us seeing more people being middle class, this obviously means better access to food. And the kind of food choices that we are making, again, comes back to us rushing to get takeaways, soft drinks that are high in energy, sugary drinks. We are just really making bad choices. So, and so with all this entire change in the paradigm of how we used to live our lives healthily before the years 2000, we've seen in the past 20 years or so that suddenly South Africans have become a fat society. And these are some of the societal norms that we've become accustomed to. The other issue that I also want to touch on quite briefly is the issue of social norms that talk to body image. Often we find that there are certain narratives that are perpetuated that are often not true. For instance, if a girl is slender or a woman is slender or has lost quite a significant amount of weight, that is deemed as a sign of illness, or we often suspect that she might be HIV positive. And then we have narratives like umakoti or newlywed brides are encouraged to gain weight because it's associated with marital bliss. So the fatter you are as a wife, the more it signifies that you are well taken care of by your husband. Similarly with men, they have central obesity, umkaba, and this is often misconstrued as a sign of wealth and affluence and well-being. Unfortunately, central obesity is associated with hidden diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and it's a ticking time bomb. And I think it's high time that we change these narratives and begin to talk about how do we change the high prevalence. A study also done recently at the University of KwaZulu-Natal at the School of Public Health showed that out of 10 South Africans, 3 are obese. And I'm not talking about being overweight, I'm talking about grossly obese and morbidly obese. And remember, along with that comes all the other chronic diseases. I'm sure you've noted there's a rise in cancer lately, especially amongst Black people. And often we wonder why. And the reason is that it's often associated with obesity, because obesity is a huge driver of non-communicable diseases such as hypertension, strokes, diabetes, and cancer, especially colon cancer, breast cancer, and many other multiple cancers that we are seeing lately that people are dying from. So these are just some of the factors. And you might have noticed that I hardly talked about culture, Fatmasi, because generally it is our lifestyle that has changed. It is how we've moved away from healthy habits that our parents used to encourage and our great-grandparents and the ones who came before them. So I'll stop there, thanks.
Okay, thank you for that, Doctor. You've mentioned so much about women, and Zama, with what Doctor just said about women, in your experience, what are some of the cultural expectations that are placed on women that predisposes them to obesity?
Thank you so much, Masi, for that question. I've actually had this one-time experience when I was with my friend, actually. So my friend is very skinny, like she's never gained weight in her life. So we were at this chilling spot hanging out, having fun, and a group of guys came up to us and then they introduced themselves. And the guys further asked us what tribe we were. Then I responded, Singamazulu. Then they responded, looking at me while scanning down my body, that I know, siyakubona wena umZulu, ugcwele, hey amaZulu apagile yo, Ibo. And then this other one jokingly looked at my friend and said, she doesn't have that Zulu thing, that extra meat, referring to the curves. And we laughed about it, of course, because he said it jokingly. But then it just goes to show that there are certain expectations on how a woman's body should look like based on their tribe, And I've recently even asked this question on my social media platform, and a lot of women came out actually saying that they've received remarks like, and some of these remarks actually have affected them psychologically, because now a person starts thinking that they are not enough, because they don't have that extra meat. And now a person has to gain weight that they never had, a person starts feeling like they're not enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a very interesting experience that you're sharing, Zama. In fact, I did have some conversation with Setu along these experiences, where she was talking about some of the things that she has also experienced. My facilitator, do you care to share some of the expectation or what you have experienced on your side, Setu?
Okay, thanks, Masi. I think, the important narrative here is that, Zama actually just shared her story here, how Zulu people are perceived. And with me being closer, it's actually not different from that. Because as Dr. also said, women are expected to have a certain way, people are saying, umakoti, like things like that. And I also asked this question on my social media, if is there any narrative that culture actually does play a part in obesity? Like, as much as people said it doesn't play a part in obesity, but the narrative that our parents actually have the stereotypes and pass it down to generations. Upud Mandla actually shared a personal story on Twitter of how he actually got married, then stopped being as active as he normally was, gained a little weight. But when he actually went to go visit his mom, his mother celebrated so much that he's actually being taken good care of. And it was seen as prosperity. Like if you gain weight as a man, not just women, you actually you have wealth, you are happy, your wife is taking care of you. But from a different narrative as well, it also starts at a young age. Also, Mrs. Patty also she shared her experience on Twitter as well, and which was quite sad, because she said it actually started at a young age. For her, when she took her kids to the clinic, her kid was actually quite small back then. Even the nurses would actually look at her a funny way, like she's not feeding her child, she's just eating the money by herself. So it shows that these narratives are not just on, like it is with kids and it is with adults as well. And right there, knowing what society thinks can actually trigger people to just comply with what society deems the right look and just gain weight for the sake of being accepted in society due to all of those stereotypes.
Okay, thank you for that, Setu. I think one of the things that you guys or you ladies have highlighted here, it has something to do with the body shaming. On your side, Dr. Hoyman, what are some of the obesity cases that you have dealt with in your practice, especially around the body shaming and effects thereof?
Thank you so much, Fatmasi. I think when it comes to body shaming, often it's women that are the subject thereof. And in my practice, I've seen quite a number of women, presenting with frustrations about how much weight they've put on. For instance, shortly after a pregnancy, when you start breastfeeding, you are always encouraged to eat more because the breast milk needs to flow. So you are fed food by the person who's overseeing you. During pregnancy, you're encouraged to pick up weight. So often after that experience of childbirth, women struggle and they really, really are so depressed because they cannot get back to how they would love to look, because there's also an expectation that when you are a mother, you must look like the role of a mother. And often umama is associated with an image of being overweight. having extra kilograms that you carry around so that you carry that label of umama with dignity. Whereas if you are a thinner individual, you considered as usisi, and often you are sort of overlooked. So oftentimes we find that body shaming can actually lead to quite a number of mental illnesses, and I've seen this manifesting in quite a number of patients. Particularly in older women, they would often present with issues of anxiety because they often don't look forward, for instance, to family gatherings because there'll be comments about how much weight they've put on. Young girls tend to be quite depressed as well because often they're struggling during adolescence with controlling their weight. They often have comments about how big they're getting. And sometimes this can actually lead to eating disorders. And I've seen that manifesting, especially in our adolescent population at our clinic at Helen Joseph, where you do find that youngsters tend to struggle with diseases such as anorexia, where they just become afraid to eat because there's this obsession with how much weight they'll put on as a result of eating. So they shy away from food. And that comes with a whole lot of complications, sort of medically speaking. Secondly, there's bulimia in some girls where they, again, there's an obsession with their weight because there's constant comments about how they should look. And because you know that young girls, when they are amongst their peers, you know, the slender look is more what is liked by boys. And so if you are overweight as a young adolescent female, you often don't get that acknowledgement. Boys don't make passes at you. They're usually not a subject of interest to them. And so they resort to binge eating and vomiting so that, you know, after I've eaten a meal, I don't sit with the possible consequences of gaining the weight from eating. So there are a lot of repercussions when it comes to sort of the mental health issues around obesity and lifestyle, and especially around body shaming. So we really need to be cognizant of the fact that, especially in children, that we collectively as a society begin to make sure that we address childhood obesity, because ultimately that is a powerful predictor of what's going to happen in adulthood. And along with obesity, remember we said it is a huge driver of non-communicable diseases. So not only are they obese as adults, but they also have the extra baggage of all the diseases that come with it. And we have a society that is becoming sicker. We're no longer dealing with HIV and TB as our primary epidemics. We're now dealing with issues such as obesity. And the good news, however, is that obesity is highly preventable. If we just got up off our behinds and started moving more, and started being physically aware and conscious of how sedentary our lifestyles have become, then I think we are starting to move in the right direction. So yes, definitely, body shaming does have quite detrimental consequences on the mental health, especially of young girls and women in particular.
Thank you so much, Doc. I like the fact that you also highlight that obesity is it's also for children as well. So if maybe there's someone who's watching, they have a daughter or a son, at least they have something to take out from tonight. Now let me come to you, Rosta. You also deal with clients, you deal with people every day. In light of this discussed stereotypes, what are some of the reasons you've heard being used against women pursuing exercising?
Thank you so much, Master, for that question. I've heard quite a lot, but the most common that I've heard from the women that I train is that their husbands don't agree or do not allow them to be trained by male personal trainers. Mainly because they say in their culture, once they are married, they may not be surrounded, they may not surround themselves with men for any reason. So I know usually this happens in Muslim cultures. And then the other reason is that their husbands are jealous and are scared that they'll actually fall or be interested in the male trainer. So they falsely make it a culture thing. The second stereotype that I've heard is about pregnant women. Whether you've given birth or you are pregnant, you are not allowed to go out or to be seen by people, because as Black people, you know that we believe so much in that anything can happen. They baka o lawyer hore ngwana hao e be segole, baka o lawyer hore o kry miscarriage, so on and so forth. The third one is that, the third one is being a wife. you are there to be a wife, so you are there to do the chores inside the house, to take care of children, to cook, to iron, and to do everything. So that's the stereotypes that I've had. Thank you, Masi.
Okay, thank you, Rosta. I guess husband will always be jealous. That is why we have you as the personal trainer, obviously, for those women. But let me come back to you, Doc. In terms of, Rosta talked about being physical active, and obviously, one of the other things would be dieting and stuff. What are your thoughts, Doc, on these stereotypes?
Firstly, thanks so much, Fedmasi. So yeah, she's quite correct about stereotypes and the limitations for women, particularly Black women who are homemakers and mothers and wives, and just have so much responsibility on their shoulders that they actually don't find time to be physically active. But you know, I think fitness is a choice, and once you've made that choice to be active, you can actually incorporate fitness into your daily routine. And it's amazing how the simple things that we do in our daily activities can actually start contributing to us reducing our waistline. So I think when it comes to talking about physical activity, there are actually a lot of gains to be made. And we actually need to holistically look at simplifying physical activity and not making it about belonging to a gym per se, because I think often those are some of the narratives that discourage people. They think fitness or physical activity equates to gym membership, and that is not always the case. Walking, taking the stairs instead of an elevator, parking your car sort of a distance from your destination and walking the rest of the distance. Those are small ways that we begin by to be active and to move. And the benefits are just phenomenal in terms of being physically active. And the rewards obviously are immeasurable and definitely cannot be, that don't even have a monetary value to it. So I would really say I agree with those stereotypes, and they do perpetuate the obese rates that we see in Black women.
Okay, thank you so much, Doc. I do see that people actually really agree with the fact that fitness is a choice. If fitness doesn't go alone, there are so many other aspects, obviously, that you need to look out to. When we even talk about diet, we normally say that, yes, you go to the gym, you train, but what is happening in the kitchen? What is happening when you're preparing your meals? So now, speaking of diet, Omakeng, there's something very interesting about you. Are we eating yam? I even today, I don't know how you survive. I don't know how you do it, because I myself, when I'm cooking umphokoqo with a mask, there must be inyama on the side. So I don't know how you survive. Like you don't eat meat at all. So I see that you follow a plant-based diet, as we always see your food on Instagram. There is no meat at all, like nothing, not even like a pistanyan and your off wings, nothing. Now, what has been the reaction from your family and friends, given the context that food plays within our culture?
Good evening, everyone. So, Masi, the reaction from my friends was actually very positive when I started. I remember when I started being plant-based, it was actually for me to practice my Christian religion. So it was Lent season and I gave up meat. And after I gave up meat, I didn't give up dairy at the time. So I was vegetarian. I wasn't necessarily plant-based. The difference being that if you're plant-based, you don't get in touch with any animal products, no dairy, no meat, nothing. Whereas if you're vegetarian, you can eat eggs and you can drink your milk and you can eat your cheese. So when I started back then, I wasn't really sure where I was going with the whole thing, but I know that I felt a bit lighter and I felt less constipated because I used to suffer from constipation quite a lot as well. My family didn't take me serious at the time, especially the people I lived with at home, my parents and my siblings. And as time went, they realized that, no, man, this child is actually very serious about this thing. I'd make sure that I eat with them, but whenever they plate out, I'd be like, please leave out the meat. And when I went to Imcimbi Ekaya, like I would be so judged, like everyone would look at me with judgmental eyes to be like, why do you think you're better than us? Why aren't you eating meat? Because, you know, meat is such a big role in our culture. especially in Mcimbini, because they slaughter animals and all of that. So they would judge me on that. However, when it comes to my friends, they've been so accommodating. Some of them even practice meatless Mondays, which is so great. They make sure that they ask me for recipes and I help them around. And when we have braais and we go out to restaurants, they ensure that the restaurant is plant-based friendly. And when we have braais, they make sure they accommodate me. They'll ask me beforehand, Obi, what is it that you're going to eat? Do you want us to buy you anything? So I'd say that from my family side, my intermediate family, they've been very accepting of it. But when I look at my extended family, there's still a long way to go. And for my friends, I am so grateful because they've been so accommodating to my diet.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I can join the Mondays, but not the whole process. I can do with the one day, but definitely not the whole process. Okay, thank you so much, Mama King. Now I'm going to move to Koketo. Do you have any questions for our panel?
Masi, there are no questions from the audience. Thank you so much. You can continue.
Okay. Now we're coming to part 2, and thank you so much. Now I'll go back obviously to Doc. Let me start with you. What is the role that obesity plays in driving illnesses? More so okay, I'm sorry about that sound. Okay. So my question to you, Doc, was what is the role that obesity plays in driving illnesses? More so NCDs, as we know them as non-communicable diseases.
Thanks, Masi. So yes, so with the increase in prevalence of obesity, we are also seeing a close association between obesity and the non-communicable diseases. And what are those? Those are mainly the cardiovascular diseases like your hypertension, stroke. So the more obese you are, the more likely you are to have high blood pressure, the more likely you are to suffer from a stroke, because you can imagine the fat accumulation around the heart and the blood vessels, and the circulation is compromised to the heart as well. And then secondly, obese people are also prone to developing type 2 diabetes as a sign of sort of a metabolic abnormality that has arisen from the obesity. We've also seen a rise in quite a number of cancers over the years, and these have been closely associated with a high prevalence in obesity. And of note are the breast cancer, the increase in breast cancer. I'm sure as we are on this panel, probably out of 10 people, 2 know someone who has succumbed to breast cancer or might have been diagnosed with breast cancer at one point or the other. I mean, in my personal experience, 3 of my colleagues have had breast cancer, but fortunately they've managed to survive it. But I've lost a sister to breast cancer and she was highly obese. So I've got a personal account of the effects of obesity in terms of cancers. Another sort of effect of obesity is on respiratory illnesses. So obese people are also more prone to having asthma, and asthma in obese patients also tends to be quite more severe. And often they don't respond well to the treatment for asthma. And they also have other respiratory illnesses, like for instance, sleep apnea. When they're asleep, they tend to have breathing difficulties. And some people actually don't wake up from their sleep because there's just too much obstruction around the airway as a result of the obesity. Another issue is that I want to allude to is on central obesity. As I've said before, often we associate it with being wealthy and affluent, and it's often applauded in men. The bigger the belly, the more rich we think he is. Unfortunately, central obesity must be taken seriously because it is actually an outward symbol or sign of someone having what we call the metabolic syndrome. And basically what that is, it's a combination of 5 things. 1, it's a large waist. So what do we mean by a large waist? A large waist in females is if the circumference of your abdomen is more than 80 centimeters. In men, it's more than 90 centimeters. So you take a tape measure and you simply measure your waistline. And if it exceeds 90 centimeters as a man, just know that you've got central obesity. The second sign would be that you have high blood pressure. So if your umkaba is growing, please do check your blood pressure. It might be on the rise. Type 2 diabetes. And then we also see a decline in what we call the good cholesterol, which is your low density cholesterol that is supposed to be protective. The high density cholesterol that is supposed to be protective. And then we also see an elevated level of a component in the blood that we call triglycerides, which is a fat component. And collectively, these can actually predispose you to strokes, heart attacks, and other sort of complications that come with being obese. Then furthermore to that, we've also seen recently with COVID that COVID patients who are obese were also found to be more likely to succumb to COVID-19 because they tend to usually have quite severe complications from the COVID-19, and also that they take longer to shed the virus out of their system. So obesity comes with a whole host of conditions. In addition, I'm so sure we all know of someone who's extremely overweight and obese who struggles with movement. So often you'll find that the joints, especially the knee joints, do have a condition that we call osteoarthritis. So often you have to help them up, especially the elderly who are quite overweight. You have to help them move around the house. Some have walking rings as support because they just simply cannot support themselves on their knees. And then again, I talked about the mental effects of being overweight in terms of anxiety and depression. And, the cycle is just vicious. And what I also want to say is that over and above the physical impact that obesity has on our health, it is also taking its toll on the economy. The South African economy loses 700 billion rand a year because of obesity. Why? Because people are often suffering from some of the other conditions, so they're absent from work. Often if you are obese, you move slower, so your productivity might be reduced as well. The health costs, data has shown that the average obese person spends on average more than around 4,400 more a year on their health, just to get to and from doctors for chronic medication, etc. And not to mention, once they're admitted into a hospital, the costs of actually occupying that hospital bed run into hundreds of thousands of rands. And if it's in private, it's even more expensive. So the repercussions of being obese are quite enormous. And you can only imagine that it is wise that we start doing something while we still have a chance.
Thank you so much for that, Doctor. You've highlighted the tape measure, using the tape measure on our waist. I'm sure most people that are watching now, especially us ladies, we are always obsessed about the tiny waist. For whatever reason, I think today we also learned that it's not really about having the waist, a small waist or the abs, but there is more into it that is important. But in all that you have highlighted, where did we go south? How did we become such an obese nation?
That's a great question. I think, until recently, Africa historically has been the continent of malnutrition and infectious diseases like TB and HIV. So for the longest time, we haven't had to grapple with the epidemic of obesity. And I think where it went south is that we started to move away from, the conventional healthy habits that our forebears had and taught us, and we've adopted Western lifestyles. And along with Western lifestyles, not only do we have better access to electricity and running water, but we also have access to mobility is much better. So we jump into vehicles just to go up the road to buy a loaf of bread, for instance. We don't walk anymore. So where we've lost it, I think, is more with the modernization of how we are living our lives, and how we've tended to move more away from the norms that we know contribute to wellness in general. And we've actually opted for instant gratification, the quick way of preparing meals. For instance, if I've knocked off late from work, I quickly dash into a KFC or a chicken licken, and that's the meal for my family. Whereas our parents wouldn't dream of doing that. They would cook a meal, even if it meant that they dished it out late, but there would be a cooked meal. So we are opting for unhealthy meals. We are not physically active anymore. We've got ready-made meals that are available. We are not cognizant of the fact that we need to guard against the scourge of obesity. And over and above that, we are promulgating these narratives around body shaming and misconceptions about what health and weight and the connection between the two is. And for the better part of it, we will always want to make gaining weight a sign of success and happiness and wealth, and obesity is associated with positive sort of effects in our lives, or positive, the results of us getting wealthier. Whereas in actual fact, it's got nothing to do with that. It actually has more to do with the choices we are making. So socioeconomic status, yes, it does bring with it sort of more buying power in terms of the options we make. But if I have more buying power economically, I can still choose to buy healthier foods. However, I think where we've also lost it is that, you know, manufacturers haven't really played ball as well, because we find that there's sort of more adverts on the sugary stuff, the alcohol, you know, smoking. So we see adverts that promote general unhealthy lifestyles, and we think they're glamorous, and we actually adopt these habits, and that is how we are slowly moving away from healthy options. We're also encouraging our children to not opt for healthy meals, because if you look at how often children buy food at tuck shops at schools, instead of us packing a healthy lunchbox for them. You know, these are some of the small ways that have creeped into our society, especially as Black people, where we have not consciously thought about physical activity as part of our lifestyle. If you look at our white counterparts and people who live more sort of in more affluent societies, they tend to sort of prioritize being physically active. And it's not necessarily going to the gym. If you walk, you run, you play outside with your children, you do household chores, those are multiple ways where we can actually incorporate exercise into our daily lifestyles. And these perceptions that we are perpetuating, that fitness is about going to the gym, I think that has also led us to where we're finding ourselves right now.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Obakeng, given to what Doctor shared, what are some of the cultural practices that on your side you think we have lost due to modernization?
Fitmasi, Doctor touched on it so well. We live in a society where we don't service the soil anymore. So our ancestors used to eat because they had to service the soil. They had to work tirelessly for long hours, and their labor was quite manual, you know. Whereas now we can sit digitally and do our work. However, we haven't adapted our health to that type of living. And I think what we then do is, like what Doctor pointed out, is start relying on all these things that are so instant, they are so quick 2-minute noodles, basically. Those are all our solutions all the time, you know. That has cost us. When we look back and we take a step back, that has cost us a great amount of our health. As much as the convenience exists and it's there, and it's good to pay for it. And it's great that we're moving in a world where we're catching up with the rest of the globe. However, we have to take a step back and see where we have lost it. We don't eat to service the soil anymore. And therefore, we should feed our souls in a way that is healthy, in a way that is sustainable, you know, and in a way that will allow us to be as productive as possible, so that we can not only move our economy forward, but also move our people. As a people, we have a lot of good things about us, and being able to work through obesity by eating well and being physically active will actually help us quite a lot.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Obakeng. You're speaking of soy. As a person who kulele is lalini, I am not used to ukudlala endlini. I grew up on the kulendi dlalu umagaloba, otritoti, just to mention a few of these things. And those are things that we're doing when we're growing up. Like, we did not have phones where we'd be glued on our phones watching a movie or playing games in the phone. So I just want to check with you, Setu. What do you think that we have lost on the way? Because I believe that you can relate with Okapu, with Otritoti, Omagaloba, and all that.
Definitely. I can definitely relate to that. And it's not just Okapu. You know, yes, when we were younger, we were playing a lot. But even as we grew up, back in the Eastern Cape, in the villages, like, women used to be active all the time, because that's your teza. Like, we went to the forest to actually collect wood. That right there is actually just being active. We went to the rivers to actually collect water. So right there, we were not just walking excessively because those places were far, but we were also climbing hills. We were also climbing mountains. We were just, you know, we're doing this hiking and climbing long before they became a sport. And as the world evolved and technology made our lives much easier, as Obakeng has said, it actually took away those daily activities that we got from doing those chores and led us to be less active. And now it's up to us to actually choose to be active in a different way, because life has evolved. We also need to evolve.
Okay, thank you. Coming to you, Rosta, and based on what Obakeng and Setu have shared, how are your clients reinventing themselves to ensure that they are integrating physical activity into their lifestyle?
Thank you, Masi. My clients are taking the stairs instead of using the lift. They are parking far so that they can take a walk, even if it means they walk from the park to the shop or to the workplace and back. Right? They are waking up early in the morning. They are working out. Before they get ready to work, they do a couple of crunches, push-ups, or jumping jacks in their comfort of their own home. It won't take a lot of time. It will only set a positive and healthy tone to the rest of the day. They wear a pedometer or a fitness watch to actually trace how many steps they have taken. That's what my clients do.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Obviously, guys, we are wrapping it up now. Tonight we have learned that. Sorry about that. Tonight we have learned that culture is not to be blamed for obesity. Now let's summarize. Doc, on your side, we have discussed obesity becoming another pandemic in our country. What are your recommendations in overcoming obesity in our nation?
Thanks. So I think, we've so beautifully talked about all the factors that play a role in where we're finding ourselves at the moment. And just to reiterate how big a problem we're facing, we did mention the fact that 3 out of 10 South Africans are obese currently, and we are actually seeing a significant increase in childhood obesity as well. So I think there's a lot of work for us to do, but collectively, if we work together, South Africans, we will definitely have some inroads in terms of overcoming this epidemic. Secondly, I'd like to say that, we need to begin with the basics. And what are the basics? The basics of battling obesity goes back to healthy choices in terms of how we eat, being physically active, making sure that we don't perpetuate.
This song is strictly for racist people. If you're not racist, you're a faggot. So get out if you're not racist.
Okay. So making sure that we do not perpetuate these narratives that we then try to blame on culture, but they are just societal narratives that we are actually imposing on people and body shaming. So we need to have that shift away from that mindset. Then I just want to say that we need a collective effort. We need to see government, civil society, the corporate sector coming together and collectively for us to find ways of overcoming this epidemic. But I think ultimately it begins with the individual. So at an individual level, before we can even talk about food taxes and sugar taxes and government regulations to actually regulate the industry of food manufacturing, we need to introspect and just look at how much physical activity we do. And all it takes really is a recommendation of starting small. The sooner you start, the better. How much exercise is needed? We're talking here about doing aerobic exercises, meaning doing exercises that get your heart rate above 120 beats per minute. All you need is to have those sessions 3 times a week, and all you need is a 20-minute session. So it's really, really not asking for much. And in terms of the hectic lifestyles that we are using as an excuse for us not to be physically active, you can actually incorporate physical activity into your daily life, just as Rosta has pointed out, walking, taking the stairs, making sure that we are as active as possible. And we also encourage our children to be active individuals. And remember, I said that the economy is taking a huge knock in terms of the cost that obesity is incurring on this country. So the repercussions are actually beyond just our physical health, but it's also having an economic input and impact, and we need to guard against that.
Thank you so much, Doc. Having heard it all tonight, Q&N, let me come back to you. What then do you think is the responsibility for all of us as a nation?
Thank you so much, Fitmasi, for facilitating tonight. Thank you to the doctor for really bringing in the wisdom, the nuggets of rich insights that help us to hear it from the horse's mouth. Because as fitness influencers and the instructors in the room, sometimes we may say what we say and we're not taken seriously. So I cannot say anything else that the doctor has not uttered. The doctor has encapsulated so well that, it starts off with small steps, and we all have a responsibility. Mama Charlotte Manyama said that let us stop being, let us live, and rise with others when we're rising with them. So all that the doctor is saying is that if you're going to start an exercise regime, take your friend, take your family, take your neighbor, take your colleague and start, because we all need to be a well and healthy society. We need that. And that is at the heart of the campaign of I Choose to Be Active, which is really the departmental campaign, because it is encouraging that you start, you step up, you do it on a regular basis, and then you encourage others and you dare them to join you in wanting to live a physically active lifestyle. And then complement that with a diet that really says that you want to be well, not for yourself, but for your community, for your family, for your colleagues and everybody else. We are very, very grateful for this opportunity, Fitmas. We are grateful because the department begins to understand what is at stake. Dr. Hueman highlighted the facts. 50% of the globe will be sitting with obesity if there is no intervention. And I Choose to Be Active is certainly driving the intervention programs that we see. Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, we've got virtual gym classes. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, we've got the Streets Are Calling challenges, which is encouraging you to walk or run with your family, with your friends, so that we can be able to be well as a society. Furthermore, I would really be messing it up. Thank you so much for the privilege.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much to the panelists, and thank you so much, Doctor, for coming and sharing your knowledge with us. We really appreciate it. Also, thank you guys to people who logged into Zoom and obviously coming to listen to us. And if you are new, please just make sure that you search I Choose to Be Active and follow us and look out for the calendar for October. Other than that, from myself, Ufitmasi Masibulele Mkundlu, Umandla in Fitness. Good night.
Okay.